Welcome into another edition of Region Roundup. I'm James Boyd here with Mike Clark. I just restarted this podcast because I stuttered on the intro, but that was nice and smooth, right, Mike?
It was, and it's very on brand for 2020 to have a little bit of a hiccup there for sure. So the listeners didn't get to hear. Maybe when we do like our outtakes or director's cut or whatever you want to call it, the Criterion edition of Region Roundup, then we can round up some of this other stuff. But let's get right to it. I'm really excited to talk about this first topic because you and I have been talking about this since we started doing the podcast, basically. And it's Jalen Washington's return. And Jalen Washington, national caliber prospect for Westside, made his return in a really exciting game, a win over Michigan City on the road on Saturday night. You were there. But, we were talking actually just before we started rolling here is that, I feel sorry for Jalen, and I'm saying that because of this. The expectations for some fans of this kid are a little bit unrealistic at this point. He hasn't played essentially for 2 years, and some people are looking at his numbers, which were about what you would expect for his playing time, and it's like Chris Buggs wants Jalen Washington to be ready for the postseason, and he wants to ramp him up gradually because this is a special talent. This is a generational talent that we haven't seen for a while in the region, possibly in Indiana. Who knows? He's just scratched the surface of how good he's going to be. And again, my message to the folks, who are wondering why he's not going for 20 and 20 or something like that is give the kid a break.
Yeah.
He's getting back into playing again, with some other really good players, including Krishan Christmas, who's coming off an injury of his own. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this last year. Westside was really good last year without him.
Yeah.
And now Westside is back with, basically a whole team of D1 talent, which is a great thing for Hoops fans, for Region fans, and it's good when teams in Gary are good because the energy, the electricity that you have in the gyms in the city of Gary are unmatched in a lot of places. And that's why his return is so exciting, and I will let you, give us some of your impressions about that.
Yeah, it was an overall great game. Westside pulled it out 63-61. And like you said, the expectations on Jalen Washington are just astronomical. I heard some of the chatter like, he really didn't do anything, and why isn't he playing more? Isn't he healthy? There's one thing to be healthy, another thing to be like in actual game shape. Like, yes, he's been training, yes, he's been working out, but you can't simulate game action until you're in the actual game. So he looked rusty. Had a couple rebounds that he probably shouldn't have brought down. I'm sure, every coach in America was probably thinking, be big, keep the ball high and things like that. But just rusty little mistakes like that you don't expect from a player of his caliber. And I'm sure he'll be fine. It was just fun to see him. But one thing I will say is he had a dunk in the fourth quarter, grabbed a rebound and just stuffed it back. And I was like, yeah, that's like a flash of, what he could be. And then he also let out a scream like, it was kind of like a frustrated, finally scored, finally made a good play moment for him. And, like you said, it's you have to kind of root for a kid who hasn't played. And, looking at my story that's on our website you can check out, he hadn't played a game for Westside in 645 days. So, that's a ridiculous amount of days to not have played an actual, game, in high school. So, Obviously, like I said, the expectations are high, and they should be. He's a 5-star recruit with with offers from everywhere, in the country pretty much. But I'd say just temper them for now and just keep an eye on Westside as the season progresses. Overall, in the game itself, he had 6 points, 8 rebounds, and about 15 minutes of action. So it wasn't a lot of action at all. But being that big, he definitely adds some size to an already big Westside squad. That to me, similar to what they did against Michigan City, they can gut out a win when they didn't play very well. They missed a ton of easy shots around the rim, but when you have two guys that are 6'9", Jalen Washington and Mason Nicholson, it's pretty good for rebounding. And also Krishan Christmas, he flew in for a tip dunk at one point. He looked rusty as well. The only player on their team that looked like he was ready was Kamari Peterson, who's been their guy, throughout his career. He's a senior. He had 23 points and 5 threes. But yeah, it was a great game. One thing I want to throw in here real quick is Jamie Hodges Jr. at Michigan City, the sophomore guard, 5'9". He is, must-see TV. Everyone told me last year he was a stud, and, because we had another reporter last year who covered Porter County, I never really got out to see him play in person. But seeing him in person, it was lived up to the advertisement. He was phenomenal. He had 15 points in the fourth quarter. And one thing I didn't get to put in my story because I was on such a tight deadline, game started late, Saturday night deadline, whatever. Mike, he hit a deep three from the wing in the fourth quarter, but it was negated because Tom Wells from Michigan City called a timeout. So everyone's like, oh my gosh, you called a timeout. This kid just hit this three. You're in this back and forth game against arguably the best team in the area. You want to spoil Jalen Washington's return, yada, yada, yada. And so, he makes this three, and they call the timeout, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, what did you just do? And Jamie's like, mad at his coach, like, you didn't believe in me, whatever. So, literally right after the timeout, they throw the ball in, and he shot another 30-footer, and it went in. So he got it right back, Mike. Like, literally, I'm like, this kid has guts. He ended up getting his shot, having a three-pointer come up short at the buzzer. It was well contested, about the only well contested shot that they had because he was shooting so deep. So, I mean, to me, if he plays like that, he could be arguably the best guard, smaller guard in the area. But that was fun to see.
Yeah, and it's great to see high school basketball back.
Yeah.
And
it was my birthday. It was a perfect gift, in my opinion. So,
I know.
There you go.
Yeah, James, congrats on 25 trips around the sun. And looking ahead to many more for sure. And that was not the only big game of the weekend because Crown Point's girls, who were on pause for a while, came back, and a huge matchup with Penn, two of the top 3 teams in the state last week, top 2 teams in the state in this week's rankings. And I will give you a little bit of a spoiler. Penn is number 1 in this week's rankings, but the head scratcher there is that Penn lost to Crown Point, and I don't even know what to say about that. This is Coaches Association rankings, and it's wrong. I mean, we don't have to do comparative scores. We don't have to look at, who's back and who's gone. We saw it right there on the court, and Crown Point actually got a lot more first place votes too. And the only way the math adds up is that some people apparently left Crown Point off their ballots, which is just even crazier than them being right behind Penn. So I know you've got a little bit on that game, and it's just and I don't want to sound like a region homer, but we've seen this before. We've seen it before where people downstate do not give credit to folks from the region, even when they're going up against other teams from northern Indiana, which Penn obviously is. So I don't know. I mean, my guess is that Chris Siebert will say, well, it doesn't matter now. It matters who wins, in February, basically, which is the truth. So, a lot of fodder for fans and Twitter and everything like that. But, still a great win for Crown Point.
Yeah, I mean, they're 6-0 in the season. Probably Lily Stoddard's best game, the Purdue commit. I believe she had something crazy like 7 blocks and blocked one at the buzzer for them to win. I'll have more on that in our newspaper this week. I know I caught some heat for not covering that game Saturday. That was my fault. I'll admit that I did not check the schedule as good as I should have. I kind of glossed over it, which is why we didn't have a stringer at Crown Point for that game. I apologize for that. But one thing I do want to say is people were kind of like saying like, oh, you know, girls basketball doesn't get the coverage it deserves, and you know everything's boys. And regardless of if I had been aware, or even if I had remembered that game was happening with Crown Point and Penn, I still would have gone to see Jalen Washington because, in my opinion, that's the bigger story. You know, he hadn't played in over 2 years. He's a 5-star prospect, best player in the state, you know, on paper. So I still would have gone to that game, but like I said, I would have definitely tried to get someone else out to cover it. You know, I'll try to make up for it with something written about it this week in our girls basketball notes. But yeah, I'm doing the best I can, people. So it gets a little crazy sometimes, and I definitely do not want to make it seem like it's a slight against Crown Point. I love basketball, no matter if it's girls, boys, men's, women's, kids, teenagers, you know, whatever, my beloved Illini, whatever it is, I'll watch it. So I'll have more on that. And yeah, it was kind of ridiculous to see that they were ranked, you know, behind Penn, you know, having just played them. I think that was the biggest thing that kind of, you know, takes away from what I was thinking. Like, wow, this is, you know, this literally just happened. You know, usually when we look at rankings, you're like, oh, this team will beat this team, and you have opinions on that. When it literally just happened and a team just beat another team, I mean, how do you not rank them ahead of them? Especially when you look at the talent that they have. They had, you know, you have Division I talent on both sides. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't like some player was out because of injury or COVID-19. They had all their players available. And, you know, the better team won, you know, in my opinion. So one thing I do want to note real quick is that they did avenge their loss to Penn last year. Crown Point had a season ended by Penn in the regional semifinal. And obviously that stung a lot. So I'm sure it probably, you know, felt good for Crown Point and the Bulldogs to kind of get some revenge back a little bit. Obviously, it pays more to win in the postseason. But until that happens, and if that happens, you know, with everything going on, you know, they got their rematch and they got the dub.
Absolutely. And, you know, this is all in good fun. You know, we do like to stir the pot a little bit. You're known for doing that as well, James.
Oh, of course.
Yes. So, you know, in terms of, you know, you can only be in one place, and you know, rest assured, CP fans, girls basketball fans, James will have your back the rest of the season. So there's a lot of basketball to be played, hopefully, and James will be out to see a lot of it. So that being said, segueing to something a little bit different, and I believe this is going to be the first appearance in the podcast for esports. I was able to talk to a few folks over at Purdue Northwest last week for my column. It ran in Friday's paper. Please check it out, folks, on Twitter or on our website. And Purdue Northwest just started an esports team. It's their 14th varsity sport. And it's interesting, of course, to start this in a pandemic. They hired their coach, Justin Bragg, actually in March, right when everything was kind of popping, obviously. He has kind of an interesting pedigree. James, you'll appreciate this. He's an Illini, like we are.
There you go.
2014 grad, so just a little bit older than you. But he started an esports program at Illinois College, which is a small private school downstate Illinois in Jacksonville. Started that from scratch. Took them to a very successful level of competition over 3 years. Was hired again in March by P&W, and was able to actually recruit a team and put a schedule together. For those of you who may not know, like I didn't, the spring is actually esports is actually a spring sport in college, which is interesting because, of course, I guess it really doesn't matter, you know, because you're competing indoors anyway. But it is a spring sport. They did have a brief exhibition season in September and October. They beat Wichita State in a couple of matches, and they lost to North Carolina. which is kind of cool, apart from everything else, that they're competing against these big-name D1 schools as well. But it was cool to talk to Justin Bragg, to Rick Costello, the Purdue Northwest athletic director, who gave me a little bit of perspective about why they did this. There's a couple of numbers out there.
It's a growing sport.
It is a growing sport. There's like 200 programs nationally in college, and there are about 40 programs actually among high schools in the state of Indiana. And the Purdue Northwest, though, is the first public university in Indiana to start an esports program. So they've got some local kids, and they've got kids all the way out to New Jersey, actually. And that's been one of the tough things, is that obviously everything's competing virtually. Usually the way they do it is they do compete live in person, and the schools that have this program have what they call esports arenas, and that's where the competitions are usually held. This year, of course, because of the pandemic, they were virtual. The competitors from Purdue Northwest were sitting at home or competing online against people who were literally all over the country, Wichita and Chapel Hill, obviously. But just getting the program off the ground in this year is kind of cool. They're going to be competing in the spring again, and one of the other things that I learned about this is that it's a little bit unlike some other sports where the schedules are kind of set way in advance. For esports, the schedules are kind of pulled together a little bit closer to the actual time of competition, and even this year it's even more so going to be that way because nobody really knows how all this is going to work out, although they probably will be competing virtually for the spring semester, and they're hoping to be back live again for the 2021-2022 school year. But anyway, all kind of cool. It's something that's really, is really taken off. So this is something that, people from the region can take part in. I talked to Felix Barrera, is one of the members of the team that I talked to. He's from Munster. He competed on Munster's esports team. So that is, like I said, kind of a cool thing that's getting started here, and it'd be cool to see how their program develops.
Mike, I'm at my next family gathering post COVID-19, and when the vaccine is here and everything's safe, my first topic will be, I will be on the side of esports is a sport, and that will definitely rile everyone up in my family who is the macho man and played football, basketball, or boxes or whatever. I'm going to bring up that esports is a sport, and I'm going to just watch the room just engulf in flames from everyone arguing. And you know what, Mike? I'm going to enjoy it and laugh because I've missed those things so much, with my GOAT debates and things like that. But that'll be the next one. You have inspired me with your column, and I will bring up the numbers that you have provided in your column as well, and we'll get the ball rolling with that, as soon as it's safe to do so again.
And I will be looking forward to hearing the reports because for those of you who may not engage with James on Twitter, first of all, why not? Romeoville Kid, please, follow him. And if you have opinions about the NBA and would like to put them out there, please be prepared to back up your opinions with facts, because James will fact check you mercilessly. And he will tell you,
spelling Michael Jordan's name right as well.
Yes. Yes. Anyway, follow his timeline. Lots of good stuff there. Moving on to our next topic, though. It's the weekly COVID update, and we have some good news to report today.
Yeah, so Whiting is back practicing. Called the superintendent today. The news they were scheduled to come back to class like in a hybrid type of learning model, and I wondered if that would affect prep sports, which had been on hold. And she confirmed for me, Cynthia Scroggins, that they will. They have resumed practices and things like that. Now it just remains to be seen, when the girls and boys basketball seasons will resume, and also I believe swimming as well. So that was some good news. I mean, I've written so many stories about programs stopping. I actually called today to see if Crown Point boys had stopped, but it turns out they didn't play against Penn, this past Saturday because Penn had COVID-19 issues, so they'll be good to go for their game tomorrow against ECU Central. So again, there's a lot of moving parts. I think I told somebody the other day, 44 boys basketball programs, 43 girls basketball programs. Hammond Academy of Science and Technology does not have a girls basketball program at the varsity level, by the way, so everyone knows why the numbers are off. But I mean, that's 80 plus programs I'm trying to keep track of, and there's a lot that goes on every single day, every hour. But again, it was good to report back and tell people like, hey, they're going to start playing, and we'll see what that means for their season and just the excitement that I'm sure those seniors especially have to know that they'll be able to compete again, hopefully without too many hiccups going forward.
Yeah, and of course, we were recalling Whiting was the last team to resume football.
Yeah.
So those seniors in particular have had, kind of a rough school year, but glad to have them back. And speaking of football, wow, that was a pretty good segue that I was not even planning on. But we have some big state football news, and I will let you take that away.
Yeah, so the biggest state football news, and I'll have more on this in an article that'll be up probably the same time around when this podcast gets posted online. The biggest news is that they had the Mr. Football finalists were announced today, and of the 10, we have 2 from the region. We have Cooper Jones, who was the defensive lineman of the year, and then we also have Bobby Babcock from Hobart, who is a linebacker of the year. Obviously, Cooper Jones from Valpo, for those of you who've been under a rock. He's committed to IU, and Bobby Babcock is committed to Illinois State. Both had phenomenal seasons. I think the one thing that sticks out to me for both is that for Cooper, he had an outstanding season despite, playing in significantly less games than his counterparts that are on this, Mr. Football finalist list. And then for Bobby, him and Hobart were able to make some pretty cool history of making it back to state for the first time since 1996. Came up short, but just an overall reinvigorating year for that town and that program. So those are, 2 big accomplishments to be named the finalists for Mr. Football and, to be on the defensive side of the ball doing it. So that's pretty cool. I know some felt that JoJo Johnson got overlooked or got slighted. Don't worry about it. He's going to Notre Dame, so he has a very, very bright future and have plenty of opportunities to prove everyone wrong at the next level. But, I'm excited about that. I just talked to both players for this story, which, again, will be out pretty soon. And it's just another way to kind of cap off a really great year of football in the region, among so much, craziness. It's pretty cool that these 2 seniors were able to, end their career on a high note and just stay tuned as well for All Area, which is being compiled as we speak. I won't give you, I won't let you know when it's coming out because then everyone's going to be like, chomping at the bit. But when it's out, I welcome any and all inquiries about, our selections.
Yeah, and I wanted to finish up tonight as we're recording this, with a little history, basically. And James and I kind of go over before we start talking about what we're going to talk about. And I'm actually going to call an audible here. I've got a couple of guys, a couple of men, who are just absolute icons in the city of Chicago. And I want to talk about just a little bit here. One of them is Dick Allen. And I'm 62 years old. So when I was a kid, White Sox fan, Southsider, some really tough times early on in my fandom because the White Sox were not very good at the end of the 6th season into the early 70s. 1972, Dick Allen comes to town and has an MVP year, officially an MVP year. He was named the American League MVP that year, almost won the Triple Crown. And it was a year of not very much hitting, but he was just it's hard to describe if, for those, who are too young to have seen him play, but I mean, he could do it all. He could run, he could hit for power, he could hit for average. And there was one game that he had 2 inside the park home runs at Minnesota, which is quite a feat, as you can imagine, in a major league game to hit 2 inside the park home runs in one game. But he just really brought a level of excitement to Chicago. And at that time, it was such a Cubs town, because the Sox were just not very good, in the years before that. But they wound up finishing second in their division that year to the A's, and just brought a tremendous amount of enthusiasm, really reinvigorated the fan base. And one of the cool things that's actually had happened recently is that Dick Allen took to Twitter, and when the Sox obviously had a great season this year, Jose Abreu winning the MVP, and from one MVP to another, Dick Allen was congratulating Jose Abreu, which was really kind of cool, reaching across the generations. But Dick Allen passed away today. He was 78 years old. And really, it's a sad day. I mean, we've had so many of these in 2020. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. It's just like another gut punch to a lot of us. But the other gentleman that I really want to talk about real quick here, and if you happen to watch the Chicago TV news, you'll probably see him on. His name is Tamul Black. He turned 102 today, and he is just one of the giants of the American Civil Rights Movement. He's the Chicago guy. And he's, I'm just looking at his Wikipedia bio right now. He's listed as a social worker, educator, civil rights activist, and historian. And I was very lucky. The White Sox have one of the really cool things that they do every year is they host a game, a game for high school age kids called the Double Duty Classic, and that's named for another Chicago legend, Double Duty Radcliffe, who got that nickname because he caught the first game of a doubleheader and he would pitch the second game of a doubleheader back in the Negro League days. But every year when they do the Double Duty Classic, the White Sox bring in people, and they have like a symposium for the kids who are playing in the game, and they invite the media in to hear about the civil rights movement and the intersection of the civil rights movement and athletics in particular. They've had former Negro League players there in the past who I was able to see. Vinny Minoso was there, the former White Sox great, who should be in the Hall of Fame. Like Dick Allen should be in the Hall of Fame. Neither one of them are. That's another discussion for another day. I could go on forever about that. But anyway, Dr. Tamul Black Jr., and James, I don't know how to really explain this, but I mean, again, he's 102 years old. So born on December 7th, 1918, and he, told us all about what it was like in the days of segregation, the days of Jim Crow, in the days of the Negro Leagues, and brought it to perspective. And when I saw him, this is probably about 7 or 8 years ago, so he was 94, 95 then. Just absolutely a spellbinding speaker. Just telling us these stories that he saw. He lived these things. This is stuff of history books, but it wasn't history to him. It was his life.
Yeah.
And this was so. And again, there's. They did a drive-by birthday party for him today, and again, if you watch the TV news, I happen to watch on Channel 5 tonight. I guess I'm realizing, this may not be up tonight in time, but in any case, you can probably catch it, looking back for YouTube clips or anything like that. But just check him out, Tamul Black Jr. Again, God bless us, he's still around, to share his wisdom with us. So, just a really cool story.
Yeah, just to piggyback off that, fun fact for all of you who don't know, I had the chance to interview Tamul Black one-on-one at my church 2 years ago, I believe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Okay.
that's kind of funny how it all came together. Like, I've literally sat down. I'm looking at the pictures right now. I'll send you the link, Mike. You can see the pictures of me talking to him. My mom is on the Black History Committee at my church. And a couple years ago, might have been last year, and I'm thinking about it. And she and the committee set up this interview with him. And, you know, me being the journalist's son, she called on me to interview him. And it was an awesome experience. I talked to him about all sorts of things, you know, his youth, his time with Martin Luther King Jr., the way he sees the world today, and the reason he took a stand, and the reason why he carried himself the way he did. And it was awesome. You know, it was funny because, you know, at the time, I believe I was 22 or 23. And, you know, I'm talking to a guy who's lived for a century. So it was like talking to a real life history book, a moment I won't forget, and a moment that I'm sure, you know, that my family was proud of. I think my mom was really proud just because she got a chance to, you know, have him come in and speak. But I guess from a personal standpoint, she, you know, really wants me to have great examples in my life, beyond just my family. So having a chance to talk to him, even beyond just the interview I did in public, but talking to him backstage and talking to his family and his wife and things like that, it was awesome, man. It was a really, you know, eye-opening experience, and one that I won't forget, just because, like you said, he's seen so much. And, you know, you'd be surprised. I guess my advice to everyone out there, and what people have told me in the past, is, you know, for anybody in your family, the elders, ask them about their childhood, ask them about what they went through, ask them about what they grew up in, just because you'd be surprised at what, you know, you'll find out. So that was a really cool experience. Looking at these pictures, Mike, it's eerie because everyone's there, maskless, and, you know, I'm standing right next to this guy and laughing and joking, and, you know, hopefully we'll get back to those times soon. But like you said, icon guy, and someone that everyone should definitely, you know, read up about and learn more about, just because he is that living legend.
And one thing I also would like to mention too, he was a decorated World War II hero. He received 4 battle stars among his other awards. And again, it's just like, folks, you know, read up about him. And again, there's videos of him out there. And again, the fact that he is still with us in 2020 is just a remarkable thing. At 102 years old, you know, has made such a difference. Just again, in terms of telling his story and sharing his story with so many people like yourself. You know, you were fortunate enough to have a one-on-one with him. I didn't have a one-on-one with him, but I was able to, you know, be in the same room with him and hear his comments too. So that's a great thing, and I think that is it for us this week. And as always, mask up, keep your distance, and help us get through this tough time. And we will see you, hear you, talk to you next week. And thanks a lot for listening.